Welcome to the Sydney Bulletin. Today we have Lisa Cotton in the studio, a daring woman running for the seat of McKellar in the upcoming federal election. Lisa is excited to bring a touch of pink into Parliament and into this race. Being a CEO and founder of Domestic Violence and Family Crisis Service, Lisa is looking forward to bringing family into the forefront of this election race. Lisa's message is courage, kindness and respect. It starts with the family, and politicians are better working together. Lisa, thank you so much for your time.
It's so exciting to be here. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Susie. It's really, really exciting that we're actually doing this today.
Now, being a local Northern Beaches girl, I would love to know more about your background and how you grew up.
Yes, well, I was born in Manly, born and raised, and had a wonderful childhood exploring the beaches and the rock pools, and it was a really, really beautiful place to grow up. And I remember some incredible memories of me being a 5-year-old and going down to the shopping centre and asking Mum, if I could be in the talent quest. And back in the day, we didn't have the reality TV like we do now. It was everything was live. So it was just a fabulous time, and me and my sisters, we got to do some singing, and we ended up in the entertainment industry pretty early on, and that was our experience of the beaches. So it was quite an exciting time back then. When I turned 11, I remember just, having my first experience of doing a bit of charity work, and I just had, that natural sense of justice back then. And I don't actually know where it came from, but I saw on the news one day that there was an earthquake in Italy, and I throw back now in my memory to, what's happening in Myanmar at the moment. And back then, there was not a lot of talk about aid, but I said to my mum, is there something that we can do? How do we actually deal with such big news when we see it on the television? And she really didn't make a suggestion, but then I thought, getting together with my sisters, what do we do best? We do some singing, we do some dancing. So we made some tickets and we ran around the neighbourhood and we asked everybody to buy a ticket and to be at our front yard at a certain time on a certain day. And we put on a concert and we raised money and we ended up in the newspaper, and it was just an amazing sense of accomplishment that we can actually change the world and we can have an impact, even as kids, to do a few songs and a few silly dances that actually put Italy on the map, and it helped a few people, I'm sure.
Sounds like you've got the spirit of giving back in you. What made you then run for politics?
Well, I grew up and I had an interest in marketing and music, and I just so happened to end up in a job that I was not expecting to end up in. And I applied for what I thought was going to be a very simple mail out type job. And it was kind of advertised to me in a way that I think, that they didn't want a particular type of person. And it ended up being for a Member of Parliament. So I was the electorate officer of 80,000 constituents, and that really gave me a sense of what it was to run the country. I could see that leadership was so important, it was accessible, and it was open to everybody. So anybody who was over 18 and had, a certain value was able to apply for this amazing job as a Member of Parliament. And I thought, one day, you never know, I might just apply for that job, and here I am now.
Now, tell me more about your domestic violence charity.
So Torchlight Foundation began about 8 years ago, and it's a bit of a sad story, unfortunately. I became a victim of domestic violence myself, unexpectedly. So through that journey, I was starting to see that accessing the services was not only not easy to do, but it was very uncertain in what you would receive as far as help and guidance and even protection. So you would expect that, a crime is committed, you're in danger, you call for help, and that you're immediately going to be protected. Well, unfortunately, that was not my experience, and I was really shocked. And I thought to myself, wow, the community would really be shocked if they knew that to be in a situation where you're really just calling out to the services that you know and well and trust, that they're going to be there, that they're going to understand what you're going through and treat you accordingly, and they're actually going to do something about what's happening. And none of those things actually happened. So I was met, with a very unempathetic, kind of not very compassionate police force. The justice system just wasn't what I thought, it was going to be. I guess I was naive. But now that I've gone through it, and now that I've spoken to, there were 60 mothers actually back then who were all going through the same thing. And they all said, you're doing the best out of all of us. You really need to go and start an organisation and we'll back you. So that's exactly what we did. And we started the Torchlight Foundation. So 8 years ago, I never thought that I'd be interested in any of this kind of thing. I just wanted to be a soccer mum, taking my children to ballet and playing netball with the girls and going out for coffee. But unfortunately, I ended up in this situation by default. And looking back now, I know that in some ways it was a purpose that perhaps I was called into. And I've been able to do a lot in knowing what it actually feels like to be a victim survivor. So the work that I've done before through Parliament, and my first husband was a minister, so I did a lot of work in that area as well. I just didn't quite get what it was for people who were in the homes of domestic violence, who were in a crisis, and what it actually felt like. So now that I actually have that feeling, and it's really not a good feeling, it's a feeling of being out of control, panic, and at times sheer terror. So whenever I have somebody come to our organisation, they get a sense that I know what they're going through, and they don't actually know my story, and I don't tell them, but somehow they connect with me in a very, very real and deep way. And I'm really grateful for the circumstances that I've been through and have come out of, because I've been able to deliver a service that has been quite extraordinary. So that's a little bit about Torchlight.
And I understand it's not just domestic violence that you've been through, but you've been through a lot of other things that I think members of the community can empathise with. Are you happy to share some of those stories?
Yeah, sure. Look, it actually does relate to domestic violence, and unfortunately, there are things that people don't actually understand or hear about because it's a very unpleasant conversation to have. So, for example, it's an area, especially in the Christian sort of area of abortion. We're wanting so much to protect unborn children, but I think it's not really spoken about as to how a lot of women end up in that situation. And I was one of those women who were abused and raped in a way that I was, out of my control, and did not have the ability to make the choice for myself to go and have a child. So I was, in a situation where I was threatened, my life was threatened, I was in danger, and I was coerced. And so ending up in an abortion clinic was the last thing and the last place I ever thought I would be. But there I was, and it didn't just happen once. So it was so shocking for me to see that not only was I in pain, and I didn't expect to walk into a room of women who were sobbing, crying, and their heads down, and filled with trepidation actually with what they were about to do. So I think that what I'd really like to convey is we really need to consider what it is that people are going through before we decide that we're going to judge. And especially, in this up and coming election, I think that all the policies need to include what is it that's going to affect human beings, and what have they actually gone through, and what are they going through. And we need to connect on an empathetic level, otherwise it's just not going to be any good. And so I've been able to do that in the area of abortion. Now, as a Christian, I don't agree with abortion. I actually do believe that it's murder. And as a Christian, I've been able to repent and seek the forgiveness of God. And he has come in with a flood of love, and he has covered that sin. And I'm so grateful that Jesus is the light of my life, because it's not something that I would expect that I would ever have done. And even going through it on the time that I was going through it, I was so shocked that he was right there with me every step of the way, and that he used me to minister to women in that place. And he gave me an understanding of the pain and the trauma that was caused by an unwanted pregnancy, or a pregnancy that was actually wanted, but that their partner was forcing them to simply get rid of.
So you've been through quite a lot. You've been through not just domestic violence, you've been through rape, you've been through an abortion, you've been through trauma and emotional trauma and physical trauma. What then can you hope to bring to Parliament from that perspective and from that life experience as a Christian advocate?
I think I can bring hope, and I can absolutely bring some resilience. I have been through the mill, and I have been through challenges that I think a lot of people would be shocked to hear. And as a result, I have written a book, and it's called Zealots. I'm looking forward to that coming out in the next few months. But look, I think the issue that a lot of people have with members of Parliament and politics in general is they feel that they're not real people, and there is a disconnect between the policies that they're trying to put through and the actual people that it's going to affect. So, for example, myself, having been to the family court and having been through the family court as a self-rep for many, many years, I can understand what it's like to go through financial hardship. I know what it's like to be homeless. I know what it's like to be terrified and not be protected by a police force, for example. And I know what it's like to be judged by the church. So there are so many more examples that I can give you. But what that's given me is a lot of resilience and understanding as to where the issues are and where the gaps might be, and where policy and even law reform can be worked through to make a better society. So family, community, and certainly borders is what I'm looking at when I go and stand for this seat of McKellar, which is going to be a challenging area because it's a Conservative seat, and traditionally they're not probably going to want to hear a story like mine. But I'm really hoping that those people who may have some judgment about what I've been through will start to connect that there are a lot of people on the beaches that simply don't have the voice and don't have the courage. And I'm hoping that at least my story will give them some courage to share their story and to understand that they're not alone, and that they have equal right in saying, this is what we need in the Parliament and this is what will help us.
Well, it's actually very refreshing to have someone come in with that integrity and that experience in life, having lived it, to be able to bring that to Parliament. And I understand you use the phrase you want to bring a touch of pink into Parliament. Can you tell me what that means?
Absolutely. Look, I wouldn't call myself a feminist. I'm a woman of the family, and I think that, having worked in the area of Parliament before, and look, even when I started to mention that I have an interest in actually standing for this seat of McKellar, I got a lot of phone calls to say, do you really want to join the boys' club? Do you really want to, come up against some of these men? And I just thought, well, yes, I do, absolutely. And look, I don't want to come up against anybody. I want to come alongside those who are in there, and I want to come alongside those candidates who are also standing, because it takes courage to even do that. And I think the touch of pink really is about the femininity that I hope to bring, the situations that only I can share as a woman. And, I'm representing 50% of the population, and I'm representing young girls. I used to be one. So, I'm really hoping that the Parliament will open the heart of, the women that are actually in there. And I think we are actually making a difference. Those women who are already in there, I really do applaud them. But what I'm saying is we really need to think about remaining that feminine woman and allowing ourselves to be females and to be that woman rather than becoming men and dressing up in the suits and acting like men. I just don't think that's going to work. I think there's going to be a benefit of having, like I say, the touch of pink in there.
Well, Lisa, we are really looking forward to having that fresh change in Parliament, and I know there are a lot of people that are supporting you. What are your key messages that you'd like to tell our audience?
Well, like I said, family, community and borders are my main areas of concern. And we're wanting to see a stronger family. We're wanting families to be empowered in every sense of the word. So from early education to tertiary education, to young people, to mental health, and also marriages. You know, we want to see marriages incentivised and rewarded and supported as well. So we're hoping also to see a safer community as a result. Where we have strong marriages, we have a safer community because there is that joining together with one man, one woman and a strong family unit. And so there is less addiction, there is less gambling, there is less youth justice issues, so yes, youth crime. And you know, the safe community is what everybody wants, from young to old. You know, we want to be able to get back to those days, and people might say I'm naive, but I think we can turn the clock back to when we could actually leave our car doors open and we could leave our homes open for somebody to, use the tools in the garage if they want to. Have a cup of tea with the next door neighbour. Know who your next door neighbour is. And that all comes from having a strong family and then a safe community. And then, of course, the secure borders is really, really important. I think that we need to really consider who are we letting into this country and who are we keeping out? The people who are really wanting to contribute, and we would not be able to function as a strong society without those from overseas, from people with skills and innovative ideas, the research that they bring, and the culture, the depth of knowledge from overseas. We want all of those really wonderful things here. And also we want to be able to secure our way of life. So here on the beaches where I sort of hail from, we do have that conservative outlook, I suppose. And, in some ways, and they do call it the Insular Peninsula, we've had some strong borders. So I'd like to see that all around Australia, but have also a way of, having our hands out and our hearts out to receive people as well, because I think that's what's going to make our community safe. Our borders are going to be strong and secure. It's not keeping people out, it's just keeping the right people in and welcoming more of those people. But, ultimately, I think faith is what's missing in this country. Faith in politics, faith in one another, faith that we can actually make a change. Faith in God is really missing as well. And I think that hopefully I'll be able to bring my faith into the Parliament. And, I think that's a really important message to bring, because this is a faith that brings love, understanding, compassion, as I said, courage. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to this seat.
Well, Lisa, it's not very often we use the words for politicians or upcoming politicians: honesty, confidence, and even bravery. But it seems that you have all three qualities, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how you bring all your experience and what you're saying you're going to bring to light. And I think that a lot of people are going to be advocating for your support as well.
Thank you, Susie. I really hope so. And look, time will tell. And and I would say to a lot of people who are thinking about running for politics, running for Parliament, give it a go. If you've got something to bring, even the position of being a candidate will bring something. And if you have those values that are grounded in love, if you have faith, for example, I think you can't lose. I think this is what the country needs. I think this is what our community needs, and certainly our families will benefit from this as well. And so I'm really hoping that that's what I'll be able to bring.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Lisa.
Thank you, Susie.
Well, that was Lisa Cotton, who is running for the seat of McKellar in the up-and-coming federal election. This is the Sydney Bulletin on CYC.